everyone. Thank you for sticking around for so long. And I'm really excited to be here. I'm Aakriti Kumar. I'm a postdoc at the Kellogg School of Business and at the Northwestern Institute for Complex Systems back at Northwestern University. And I'm really excited to share some of our work on cultivating human empathic communication via large language model role-playing games. And what I mean by empathic communication is a skill of communicating in a way that can make someone else feel heard or understood or validated. And this is not an audience that I need to convince that LLMs are great at that. We can debate all we want on whether AI has empathy, but I think AI does a great job of generating text that people perceive as empathic. And there's a bunch of cool, let's see if this works. Okay, awesome. And there's a bunch of cool papers who show us this, that people prefer the text or really like the text that the LLMs are generating, but people still want empathy from other humans. People still want to feel heard by something that another human says. And so that presents an opportunity. Can we use large language models to help people practice and improve their empathic communication skills? And that's what we try to do in the Lend an Ear role-playing game, where you can come in and you're speaking to an LLM conversational partner that's simulating a trouble. We stick to 5 very simple troubles: the passing of a family member, losing a job, feeling overlooked at work. And we focus on low relational context, so we think of this as communicating with a stranger or with a colleague that you don't know too well. And what that might look like is this. You go in, it looks like a chat window, and your conversational partner starts the conversation by saying something like, "So I just lost my job. I had a sense this was coming, but it's still a shock." And then hopefully you say something like, "That's awful. How are you feeling about it?" And then we simulate some typing so that people feel like they're having an actual conversation. And then the LLM agent replies, "I'm feeling a mix of emotions. It's like I knew it was coming, but actually facing it is a whole different story." And one thing that you realize when you read through a lot of these conversations is that people's way of responding to others who are sharing a trouble lies on a continuum. And I'm going to share that with an example. So for example, if someone says, or in our case, the LLM agent said, "I'm feeling so discouraged. I just got passed over for the promotion I was working hard for." One of the participants said, "Go find another job." I think we all agree that that would be on the low end of the empathic communication spectrum. A middling response was, "Oh no, don't talk like that. Everything will be just fine, I assure you." That sounds better, but it's kind of dismissive. You're telling them how to feel. And then there was someone who said, that must be so hard. "I'm sorry, do you want to talk more about it?" So this person's validating their emotions. They're using apologetic language. They're encouraging them to elaborate more. And so those are the kind of things that our platform then gives people feedback on. So we tell them, we give them scores on 3 dimensions. We give them some personalized feedback on the conversation that they just had. And we do that on 6 dimensions: validating emotions, encouraging elaboration, demonstrating understanding as things that you should be doing, and giving unsolicited advice, dismissing emotions, or being self-oriented in your responses is something that you should not be doing. And remember, this is, again, low relational context, so this might be different. I'm sure you want to give some advice to a friend or a partner once the conversation progresses, but when you're talking to a stranger and they've come to you with a problem, these are the things that the literature and the co-authors on this paper all agreed that would be the things you could do to make someone feel heard. And we use an LLM as a judge paradigm to evaluate conversations, and we published our paper on around this, evaluating different frameworks of empathic communication and how well large language models compare to experts. and to lay people in evaluating empathic communication in text. And so we're using the same thing to evaluate all the conversations that we have on this platform. Okay, coming to the RCT, we recruited participants on Prolific, all US participants. We had about 1,000 people, and they were sent to one of 4 conditions. The control condition was where you just came in, have 3 conversations, one after the other, get no feedback. Then we had a video condition where one of our co-authors, Bruce Lambert, who's a communications professor at Northwestern and also a TikTok star, we had a video of his play that speaks about how you should speak when you're trying to convey empathy. And then we had the AI coach condition where we give people personalized feedback, and the combo condition where we give people Bruce's little video and the personalized feedback as well. And so what I'm going to show you next is the score of people's scores on the first conversation that they had when they came onto the platform. And what you see here is that the distribution looks very similar across the 4 conditions, which is what we'd expect if the randomization worked. So people are similar. We see a similar distribution of scores across the 4 conditions. And then if you look at the change in empathy scores, I'm calling it empathy score, but it's the score on those 6 dimensions that we outlined earlier. We see that people's scores improved a lot more in the AI coach and combined conditions compared to the video or the control. In the control, we don't see any improvement. And we can also look at that by each of the 6 dimensions that we had defined before. And now that I've shown you the big takeaway, we can move people's communication strategies by giving them some personalized feedback, and hopefully we're doing some follow-up work to see if this transfers to human-human communication. The other exploratory thing that we could do was that we have 3,000 conversations, which is a lot of messages. These are all multi-turn conversations. And now that we have that, we split all of those messages that participants sent to support the LLM conversational partner into sentences, and we converted them into embeddings. And we used something called a case-sparse autoencoder to find latent themes in these messages. And then we used LLM-generated descriptions to come up with 128 concepts across these 16,000 messages. And what this allowed us to do was map messages to what we know from the literature on what we would expect as strategies of empathic communication. And so we know that there's affective empathy, cognitive empathy, motivational empathy. What we also find is a lot of misattuned behavior, which is something that people should not be doing, but end up doing because we're used to giving advice and being self-oriented sometimes. But there's just one way to look at all the conversational data that we had and map out the space of what empathic communication looks like for these 5 trouble stock scenarios. And now that we have that, we can also see how people's strategies changed in the AI coach and combined conditions. And what we see is that you see the red dots have moved to the left, so people start to do less of the misattuned behaviors, and the other ones have increased. Awesome. And so now we're trying to scale this role-playing game in 2 places. In Chicago, there's a MindWorks museum, really cool place where you can go in and participate in behavioral experiments. So what we're doing there is we're having people come in, try out our empathy role-playing game, and then have a conversation with a stranger. And we're collecting responses for both of them on how that went. We're also recording their conversations with consent. And we're trying to see if this translates to actual human-human communication. Does that make that better? And the other thing we're trying to do is do this in different languages in India and see if we can deploy this in a firm setting where managers get this sort of training and then look at employee well-being metrics. And that's it. Thank you. And you can try lending in here if you use the QR code up here.
Questions?
Hi.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Very interesting how you're measuring this. Something I missed probably is looking at your density plots and how you showed improvement. Why did we have negative numbers there again?
Ooh, so that's because we were looking at composite scores, which is the sum of the positive dependent variables minus the negative one. So you're getting scores on these 6 dimensions. These give you, it's on a scale from 1 to 5 on all 6. And how we're calculating that overall empathy score is by adding the positive behaviors and subtracting the negative behaviors from them. And that's why that looks like that. Sorry, I should have said that.
Oh, yeah.
If you want more, go ahead.
So something else about the concepts that you introduced. Do you mind going over how did you come up with those? Like, I understand like some of this was like automated,
Is it this
right?
one?
But
Yeah.
what threshold and stuff like that?
Yeah, and so all the things that you're seeing at the bottom, so for example, feeling invisible can be a really isolating and invalidating experience, was something that someone said in a conversation, and that was mapped back to a concept that says mentions feeling invisible or unseen. That came from the k-sparse autoencoder process that we did, and the rest of it was human coding. So we sat down and tried to categorize all of those 128 into what we know from the literature on strategies about empathic communication. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you.